welcome to the show, Dr. Douglas.
Hi, thanks. Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, really, really good stuff. Now, you wrote the book. It's called Addressing Systemic Discrimination by Reframing the Problem. And you decided to write this particular book after the George Floyd murder,
Yes.
but also because you started to reflect on the DEI efforts that are going on today. Tell our audience what is missing from the current DEI efforts.
Yeah, what struck me as I looked at George Floyd, here are these well-wishers on the side trying to get Chauvin to take his knee off his neck without success. But the reality is, no matter how empathetic they were, it was one individual who was dying. And as I reflected on my own experiences with racism, either myself or helping others, there is an individual. And although we have many good approaches in DEI, they often deal with awareness, helping others to understand the issues around microaggressions, etc. We lose the fact that there is an aggrieved individual. So I set up the company Safe Haven Dialogues to focus on the individual, to empower an aggrieved individual to have the type of dialogue that they need to have with their manager. But of course, that's a very threatening and difficult thing. And so we developed a process by which they could identify, first of all, they can be clear about what's the outcome they desire. And then once they understand what are the issues that are affecting the situation, seek to find another problem, a better problem to solve, which would get them to the desired outcome, which is what we call reframing. And if I may give your listeners a quick example.
Yeah.
After I finished my Ph.D., I was hired by Xerox. And for 3 months, I could not get a good project. And one day, a white young man joined the group, had not completed his Ph.D. And within a week, he was placed on a top project. I went to see my boss. And when I said to my boss, look, Steve, think of me as though I'm Bob. I was stunned to see the recognition in his face when he said to me, you are right. Bob has only been here a week, and I have put him on the artery project. I flew out of his office, ran to the senior vice president to complain of, here's another example where I'm being discriminated against. 2 or 3 years later, I recognized I had totally missed something. The senior vice president that year had insisted on hiring young Black PhDs because at that time, Xerox only had 1 Black PhD. And that summer, he hired 3 of us. So it was probably more important to him that Frank Douglas succeed than it was to Frank Douglas. So I missed that. The second thing that I missed is that my desired outcome was to get a good project, not for the senior vice president to have tough words with my boss about discrimination. So had I reframed and had I said to the senior vice president, Dr. Tribus, could you help Steve, my boss, find me a good project? I might have retired from Xerox because that was within his sphere of influence. Yeah. It was also the desired outcome that I wanted. And so when I was writing my memoirs, as a matter of fact, I suddenly recognized that many times the way I actually handled problems is I reframed. And so an important part of what's in the book is to look at a number of cases and to take them through the process and to get them to find a better problem to solve and to reframe.
A new version of addressing systemic discrimination by reframing the problem. Until You Walk in My Shoes, a reframing methodology to overcome systemic discrimination by Dr. Frank L. Douglas.
Jack Canfield, co-author of the Chicken Soup for the Soul series and the book, The Success Principles. I think it's a brilliant book. I really strongly encourage it. Everyone to read it. It's great if you're an aggrieved person. I want you to read it. And if you're someone who is managing a company or a division of a company, I think it's really important at this time in history to read the book.
Don't miss this powerful and eye-opening exploration of the path to change. Until You Walk in My Shoes by Dr. Frank L. Douglas. Coming soon.